My wife told me I'm too ugly to ever worry about her cheating, then whine on a guy at the club while making eye contact with me and said, "This is what a real man looks like." When I confronted her, she laughed and said, "You should thank me daily that I even let you touch me," and told me apologize to the guy for ruining her fun. Her best friend DM'd me saying, "She only keeps you around because you're easy to control," and sent screenshots of her rating other guys while calling me her two-tenths practice husband. Now she's posting that she finally put me in my place. But she doesn't know who she's really dealing with. You know that feeling when you're watching a car crash in slow motion? That's exactly what last Saturday night felt like, except I was the idiot behind the wheel, and my wife Marissa was the 18-wheeler barreling straight toward me with a smile on her face. Ember, this pretentious downtown club that charges $15 for a watered-down whiskey, became the stage for what I can only describe as the most epic display of marital disrespect in modern American history. And lucky me, I had front-row seats to my own humiliation. The place was packed tighter than a subway car during rush hour, with bass thumping so hard it felt like my chest cavity was being used as a drum kit. Neon lights strobed across sweaty faces, and the air reeked of overpriced cologne mixed with desperation and bad life choices. I should have known something was up when Marissa spent 2 hours getting ready, putting on that black dress that hugged her curves like shrink wrap. The same dress she hadn't worn for me in over a year, mind you. But hey, I'm just the husband. What do I know about my own wife's wardrobe choices, right? We'd been married for 3 years, and somewhere along the way, I'd apparently signed up to be the world's most pathetic sidekick without getting the memo. Marissa had this way of making me feel like I should be grateful she even acknowledged my existence, like I'd won some cosmic lottery by convincing her to marry my sorry ass. And honestly, I'd started believing it. That's the thing about psychological warfare. It's subtle until it's not. So there I was, nursing my overpriced drink and trying to have a good time, when I noticed Marissa had wandered off toward the dance floor. No big deal, I thought. She likes to dance. I've got 2 left feet in the rhythm of a broken metronome, so I figured I'd just watch and admire my wife doing her thing. How beautifully naive of me. That's when I spotted him, some pretty boy in a blue button-down that probably cost more than my car payment, looking like he'd stepped straight out of a cologne commercial. The kind of guy who orders bottle service and tips the bartender with hundreds just to flex. You know the type, perfect hair, perfect teeth, probably drives a BMW, and calls everyone bro unironically. Everything I wasn't, basically. And Marissa? Oh, she gravitated toward him like a moth to a flame. Except this moth was apparently trying to start a 5-alarm fire. She started dancing near him, then with him, then, and this is where my brain started short-circuiting. She pressed herself against him like they were auditioning for the world's most inappropriate music video. Now, I'm not a jealous guy by nature. I mean, I know my wife is attractive, and I've always been secure enough to handle other guys checking her out. That's just life when you're married to someone out of your league. But this was different. This wasn't some innocent dancing or harmless flirting. This was my wife grinding on another man like she was trying to start a friction fire with her ass. The worst part wasn't even the grinding, though trust me, that was pretty fucking terrible. It was the eye contact. Every few seconds, she'd look straight at me over his shoulder, making sure I was watching, making sure I was seeing exactly what she was doing. Her eyes had this challenge in them, this dare you to do something about it gleam that made my blood run cold. She wasn't caught up in the moment or drunk off her ass. This was calculated, deliberate, a performance designed specifically for an audience of one, me. I stood there like an absolute moron, drink in hand, watching my wife simulate sex with a stranger while Pitbull blasted through the speakers. People around me started noticing, shooting me those awkward glances you give someone whose life is imploding in public. You know, that mixture of pity and thank God it's not me that makes you want to crawl into a hole and die. But Marissa wasn't done with her little show. Oh no, she was just getting warmed up. The song changed to something slower, more sensual, and she turned around in his arms so her back was pressed against his chest. His hands moved to her hips, and she let them. Hell, she encouraged them, placing her hands over his and guiding them lower. That's when she delivered the killing blow. She leaned back against his shoulder, turned her head toward me with this satisfied smirk, and mouthed 5 words that hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. This is what a real man looks like. I swear to God, time stopped. The music faded to white noise, the crowd disappeared, and all I could see was my wife's lips forming those words while she molded herself against another man's body. My heart didn't just break. It turned to fucking stone, calcified right there under those tacky neon lights that suddenly felt like prison bars. 3 years of marriage, and this is how she chose to communicate her feelings about our relationship. Not through counseling, not through honest conversation, but through public humiliation choreographed to maximum effect. She wanted me to know exactly where I stood in her estimation, and apparently, that place was somewhere below the lint in her pocket. I wanted to storm over there, wanted to grab that pretty boy by his perfectly pressed collar and introduce his face to the nearest wall. I wanted to scream, to make a scene, to do something, anything, that would make me feel less like a castrated lapdog watching his owner play fetch with someone else. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen like a deer in headlights, while my wife continued her exhibition. The guy, let's call him Mr. Perfect, seemed to be enjoying himself immensely. He probably thought he'd hit the jackpot, some married woman looking for a thrill while her pathetic husband watched from the sidelines. He had no idea he was just a prop in Marissa's twisted little power play, a human dildo she was using to send me a message. As the song ended, she finally stepped away from him, smoothed down her dress, and sauntered back toward our table like she'd just been getting a breath of fresh air instead of dry humping a stranger. The casual way she did it, like grinding on random dudes, was just part of her evening routine, made the whole thing somehow worse. Mr. Perfect followed her with his eyes, probably hoping for round 2, but Marissa was done with him. He'd served his purpose. She'd used him to deliver her message, and now he was yesterday's news. She had bigger fish to fry, namely, me, sitting at our table like a gutted salmon waiting to be served. As she approached, I could see the satisfaction in her eyes, the look of someone who'd just won a game I didn't even know we were playing. She sat down across from me, picked up her Cosmopolitan, and took a sip like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just nuked our marriage in front of half the city's nightlife scene. "Did you see that guy's moves?" she said casually, stirring her drink with that little plastic sword. "Some men really know how to handle a woman." And that's when I knew, with absolute crystal clarity, that my marriage was over. Not because of what she'd done, but because of how she'd done it. The calculation, the cruelty, the complete lack of remorse. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a declaration of war, and I'd just been served my walking papers in the most humiliating way possible. The night was just getting started. You know how they say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned? Well, let me tell you what happens when a woman decides to scorn her own husband in front of a crowded nightclub. It's like watching Satan himself take notes for future reference. Because apparently, Marissa wasn't satisfied with just grinding on Mr. Perfect and delivering her little real man proclamation. Oh no, that was just the appetizer. The main course was about to be served. And guess who was on the menu? I sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at my wife as she sipped her Cosmopolitan with the same casual indifference you'd show a piece of gum stuck to your shoe. The bass was still pounding, people were still dancing, and the world kept spinning like nothing earth-shattering had just happened. But inside my chest, it felt like someone had detonated a nuclear bomb and was now casually asking if I wanted fries with that devastation. Finally, I found my voice, though it came out sounding like a broken car engine trying to turn over. "What the hell was that, Marissa?" She looked up from her drink with those perfectly manicured eyebrows raised, like I'd just asked her to explain quantum physics instead of why she'd been auditioning for Magic Mike with a complete stranger. "What was what?" she asked, tilting her head with this innocent expression that would have fooled a jury of saints. Too bad I wasn't buying what she was selling. "Don't play dumb with me," I said, leaning across the table. The sticky surface, probably coated in a decade's worth of spilled drinks and broken dreams, made my arms stick slightly as I moved closer. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. That little performance you just put on." That's when her mask slipped, just for a second, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. Not guilt, not embarrassment, not even anger. Pure, unadulterated satisfaction. Like a cat that had just caught a mouse and was deciding whether to play with it before the kill or go straight for the jugular. "Oh, you mean dancing?" she said, voice dripping with mock innocence. "Sorry, I forgot you need written permission before I'm allowed to move my own body. She took another sip of her drink, maintaining eye contact like we were playing the world's most twisted staring contest. Dancing, I repeated, my voice rising above the music. A few people at nearby tables started glancing our way, sensing drama in the air like sharks smelling blood in the water. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I was sitting, it looked more like you were trying to conceive a child through your clothes. And that's when she laughed. Not a nervous giggle or an embarrassed chuckle, but a full-throated laugh that cut through the club's noise like a chainsaw through silk. It was the kind of laugh villains in movies give right before they reveal their master plan to destroy the world. "Oh, honey," she said. And the way she said honey made it sound like she was calling me something much less endearing. "You're too ugly to ever worry about me cheating." The words hit me like a freight train loaded with concrete blocks and broken promises. I actually felt my face flush, heat creeping up my neck like someone had just turned on a furnace inside my chest. Around us, conversations started dying as people picked up on the nuclear fallout happening at table 12. But she wasn't done. Oh, hell no. Marissa was just getting warmed up, and she had an audience now. Our friends, if you could call them that after what was about to happen, had been scattered around the club doing their own thing, but they'd started gravitating back to our table like moths to a dumpster fire. Clara, Marissa's best friend and partner in crime since college, slid into the booth next to her with a smirk that could have powered the Vegas Strip. She had this look on her face like she was watching her favorite reality show, complete with popcorn-eating energy. Next to her sat Jared, this guy from Marissa's work who'd been trying to get in her pants since the Clinton administration, shifting uncomfortably like he'd accidentally walked into someone's therapy session. "You should thank me daily that I even let you touch me," Marissa continued, her voice getting louder and more theatrical with each word. She was performing now, putting on a show for our little audience. "I mean, look at yourself. Then look at me. Then explain to me what the hell I'm doing with someone like you." The silence at our table was deafening, even with the club's music pounding around us. Clara's smirk widened like the Cheshire Cat on steroids, while Jared looked like he wanted to crawl under the table and disappear into witness protection. A couple at the next table over had stopped pretending they weren't eavesdropping and were now openly staring like we were dinner theater. I should have walked away. Any self-respecting human being would have thrown down some cash for the drinks, told her to go fuck herself, and called an Uber. But here's the thing about psychological warfare. It doesn't just destroy your enemies, it reprograms your allies. And somewhere along the way, Marissa had reprogrammed me to believe that I deserved whatever treatment she dished out. "Marissa, please," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. "Can we just talk about this at home?" "Talk about what?" She shot back, spreading her arms wide like she was addressing a courtroom. "The fact that my husband is so insecure he can't handle me having a good time? The fact that he's sitting here whining because another man found me attractive enough to dance with." That's when I saw him approaching our table, Mr. Perfect himself, probably thinking he was walking into some kind of romantic comedy instead of the emotional equivalent of Chernobyl. He had this confident swagger that screamed trust fund and daddy issues, the kind of guy who'd never heard the word no, unless it was followed by "you can't buy another yacht this month." Marissa spotted him too, and her eyes lit up like she'd just won the lottery and found out her ex had been audited by the IRS on the same day. "Perfect timing," she purred, and I swear to God, she actually purred like some kind of predatory cat. "Hey," Mr. Perfect said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey and twice as expensive. He had this perfect smile that probably cost more than my college education, and when he looked at me, I could see the exact moment he realized he'd walked into a domestic nuclear test site. "This is my husband," Marissa said, gesturing toward me like she was introducing a particularly disappointing appetizer. "Honey, this is..." She paused, realizing she didn't even know his name, which somehow made the whole thing infinitely worse. "Derek," he supplied, extending a hand that probably got manicured more often than I got haircuts. I shook it because what else was I supposed to do? Leave him hanging in front of everyone? His grip was firm, confident, everything mine wasn't at that moment. "Derek," Marissa repeated, savoring his name like fine wine. "Derek, I was just explaining to my husband how some men actually know how to treat a woman." She turned to me with a smile that could have been used as a weapon in 17 states. "Apologize to him." The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. What? I managed to croak out. You heard me, she said, her voice taking on that dangerous edge I'd learned to fear over the past year. You ruined my fun by being a jealous, insecure little boy. The least you can do is apologize to Derek for making things awkward. The entire table went silent. Clara looked like she was watching the Super Bowl, and her team was winning by 50 points. Jared had gone pale as a ghost, and was probably calculating how quickly he could fade into the crowd. Derek looked confused but intrigued, like he'd stumbled into some kind of kinky role play he didn't quite understand but was willing to go along with. I'm not apologizing to, I started, but Marissa cut me off with a look that could have stopped traffic. You will, she said, her voice quiet but carrying more venom than a Cobra convention. Unless you want to walk home and sleep on the couch for the rest of the month. That's when I realized how far I'd fallen, how completely she'd broken down my self-respect, piece by piece, until I was willing to humiliate myself just to avoid making her angrier. It was like waking up from a nightmare only to realize you were still asleep, still trapped in some twisted reality where your wife held all the cards, and you were just grateful she hadn't burned down the house yet. I'm sorry, I heard myself say, the words tasting like ash and broken dreams. I'm sorry for ruining your fun. Derek looked uncomfortable now, like he'd expected some kind of threesome proposition and gotten a front row seat to someone's soul being crushed instead. No worries, man, he mumbled, probably wondering how quickly he could escape this psychological horror show. Clara actually started clapping, slow, deliberate applause like I'd just performed Shakespeare instead of selling my dignity for 30 pieces of silver. Wow, she said, her voice dripping with false admiration. That was beautiful. Really. Marissa beamed like she'd just won an Oscar for Best Performance in Destroying Your Husband's Will to Live. She reached over and patted my hand condescendingly, the way you'd pet a dog that had just learned not to piss on the carpet. See, she said to the group, though her eyes never left mine. He can be trained. And that's when something inside me, something I didn't even know still existed, finally snapped. Not in anger, not in rage, but in perfect, crystalline clarity. I looked around the table at these people I'd considered friends, at this woman I'd promised to love and cherish, and realized I was sitting in a room full of strangers who thought my pain was entertainment. The music kept playing, people kept dancing, and my marriage kept dying right there under the neon lights of Ember nightclub. But for the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't the only one who knew it. That Uber ride home might as well have been a journey to the seventh circle of hell, complete with a driver who kept trying to make small talk while my soul was busy disintegrating in the back seat. The guy, let's call him Chatty McTalkerson, kept glancing in the rearview mirror like he was expecting me to rate his conversation skills 5 stars instead of sitting there looking like I'd just watched my dog get hit by a garbage truck. Crazy night out there, huh? He said, navigating through downtown traffic while some generic pop song played softly through speakers that had seen better decades. You look like you could use a drink, buddy. If only he knew that alcohol was the least of my problems right now. Yeah, I managed, staring out the window at the blur of neon signs and late-night pedestrians stumbling between bars like lost souls searching for meaning at the bottom of a shot glass. Something like that. Marissa had stayed at the club, naturally. After her Oscar-worthy performance in Psychological Warfare, she'd decided the night was still young and there were probably more hearts to crush and egos to destroy. She'd waved me off like I was an annoying waiter interrupting her dinner, telling me she'd catch a ride later, with a dismissive flick of her perfectly manicured hand. Translation: she was planning to continue her evening with Derek or whatever other Ken doll she could find to validate her twisted sense of superiority. But hey, at least I got to pay for the privilege of leaving my own wife at a nightclub while she shopped for my replacement. Lucky me. The ride felt like it lasted 17 years, each red light giving me more time to replay the evening's greatest hits. You're too ugly to ever worry about me cheating. Thank me daily that I even let you touch me. This is what a real man looks like. The words looped in my brain like a broken record player stuck on the world's worst song. By the time we pulled up to our apartment building, a converted warehouse in what real estate agents optimistically called an up-and-coming neighborhood, I felt like I'd been through a meat grinder operated by someone with serious anger management issues. Have a good night, man, the driver said as I climbed out, probably grateful to be rid of his obviously depressed passenger. I tipped him through the app because even in my current state of existential crisis, I wasn't about to become the kind of asshole who takes out his marital problems on innocent Uber drivers trying to make rent. The elevator in our building had been broken for 3 months, which meant I got to climb 4 flights of stairs while carrying the weight of my shattered dignity. Each step felt like walking through quicksand made of regret and poor life choices. The fluorescent lights in the stairwell flickered like they were having their own nervous breakdown, casting everything in this sickly green glow that made the whole place look like a zombie movie set. Our apartment. Sorry, my mistake. Marissa's apartment that I happened to pay half the rent for greeted me with the familiar scent of her expensive perfume and the lingering ghost of whatever takeout we'd had for dinner. The place looked exactly the same as when we'd left, but somehow everything felt different. Like someone had replaced all our furniture with identical pieces that existed in a parallel universe where wives didn't humiliate their husbands for sport. I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey, the good stuff we'd been saving for special occasions, though I figured having your soul publicly executed qualified as pretty damn special. The alcohol burned going down, but it was nothing compared to the fire already raging in my chest. That's when the real fun began. See, when you're alone with your thoughts after experiencing what I can only describe as marital waterboarding, your brain decides it's the perfect time to play director of your own personal horror movie. Every moment from the club came back in high-definition detail, complete with director's commentary from my subconscious. Practice husband. Where the hell had that even come from? Had she been planning this? Was this some kind of long-term strategy to break me down systematically? I sat on our couch, the one we'd picked out together during happier times when I still believed in concepts like love and partnership, and tried to figure out when exactly my marriage had turned into a psychological experiment designed by sadists. The whiskey wasn't helping. If anything, it was making everything worse, amplifying every cruel word and turning them into neon signs that spelled out my inadequacy in letters 50 feet tall. I found myself pacing around the apartment like a caged animal, picking up random objects and putting them down again, unable to focus on anything except the soundtrack of humiliation playing on repeat in my head. At 3:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I was staring at the clock on the microwave like it might suddenly reveal the meaning of life. I heard keys jingling in the hallway. Marissa was home, probably fresh from whatever victory lap she'd taken around downtown with her new friend Derek. She stumbled through the door with all the grace of a newborn giraffe on roller skates, clearly having celebrated her successful husband destruction mission with several more cosmopolitans. Her hair was messed up, her lipstick was smeared, and she had that particular glassy-eyed look that comes from mixing alcohol with adrenaline and poor decision-making. "Oh, you're still up," she said, like she was surprised to find me in my own living room at 3 a.m. after she'd just nuked our marriage in front of half the city's nightlife scene. She kicked off her heels with the casual indifference of someone who hadn't just committed emotional genocide a few hours earlier. "Yeah, funny how that works," I said, my voice sounding like I'd been gargling gravel and disappointment. "Turns out it's hard to sleep when your wife decides to audition for Sluts Gone Wild at the local nightclub." She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them like I was being dramatic instead of responding to her public crucifixion of our relationship. "Oh please," she slurred, stumbling toward the bedroom. "Don't be so fucking dramatic. We'll talk when you're calm." Calm. She wanted me to be calm after what she'd done. Like I was the one being unreasonable here. Like I was overreacting to her grinding on another man and making me apologize to him for existing. Sure, let me just meditate on that for a while and get back to you with my feelings expressed in a nice, neat PowerPoint presentation. "I am calm," I lied, following her toward the bedroom. "I'm so calm I could be in a coma. But we're talking about this now." She turned around so fast, she almost fell over, catching herself on the doorframe with one hand while pointing at me with the other. "No," she said, her voice taking on that dangerous edge I'd learned to recognize as the sound of incoming artillery fire. "We're not talking about anything right now. You're drunk and angry and not thinking straight." The irony was so thick you could have cut it with a chainsaw. She was telling me I wasn't thinking straight while she swayed like a palm tree in a hurricane, her mascara running in little black rivers down her cheeks. The next morning arrived like a hangover's evil twin, complete with sunshine that felt like needles in my eyeballs and the sound of Marissa brewing coffee like absolutely nothing had happened. She moved around the kitchen with the casual efficiency of someone who hadn't just detonated her marriage 12 hours earlier, humming some pop song while she measured out grounds for our fancy espresso machine. "Morning," she said cheerfully when I shuffled into the kitchen looking like an extra from a zombie movie. She was already dressed for work in one of her power suits, hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless. Like she'd hit the reset button on the entire universe while I'd been lying awake staring at the ceiling. "We need to talk," I said, my voice hoarse from a night of chain-smoking cigarettes and existential dread. "About what?" she asked, stirring sugar into her coffee with the same innocent expression she'd worn when asking what I meant by her performance the night before. "About last night. About what you did." She sighed like I was a particularly slow student who just wouldn't grasp a simple concept. "I was dancing, honey. Dancing. It's what people do at clubs. Maybe if you ever joined me on the dance floor instead of sulking at the table, you'd understand that. Just dancing. Right." And I suppose Derek's hands wandering all over her body was just advanced choreography, and her telling me I was too ugly to worry about cheating was just constructive criticism. "That wasn't dancing, Marissa. That was you being insecure." She cut me off, not even looking up from her phone as she scrolled through whatever notifications had accumulated overnight. "That was you projecting your jealousy onto a perfectly innocent situation because you can't handle the fact that other men find me attractive." And just like that, she'd flipped the script. Suddenly, I was the bad guy for being upset about her public humiliation campaign. I was the one with issues for not appreciating her innocent dancing with random strangers. According to the Gospel of Marissa, the real problem wasn't her betrayal. It was my jealousy and inability to appreciate her need for external validation. The gaslighting was so smooth, so effortless, that for a moment I almost believed her. Almost started questioning my own memory of what had happened. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe it really was just innocent dancing and I was being a possessive, insecure husband who couldn't handle his wife having fun. Almost. But then I remembered the look in her eyes when she'd mouthed those words to me. The calculation. The cruelty. The satisfaction. This was just the beginning. For days. That's how long it took for the other shoe to drop. And let me tell you, when it finally did, it hit the ground with the force of a meteor strike that could have been seen from Mars. For days of walking around like a zombie extra in his own life, replaying that night at Ember on an endless loop, while Marissa went about her business like she'd just reorganized the spice cabinet instead of publicly executing our marriage. Those 4 days were like living in some twisted version of Groundhog Day, except instead of Bill Murray learning to be a better person, I was slowly going insane while my wife pretended that humiliating me in front of half the city was just another Tuesday night. She'd wake up, make her coffee, kiss my cheek like we were still playing house, and head off to work with the same casual indifference she'd show a parking meter. Meanwhile, I was over here feeling like someone had replaced my brain with a broken jukebox that only played one song. Greatest Hits of Your Wife's Cruelty, Volume 1. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her grinding against Derek, heard her calling me too ugly to worry about, felt the sting of having to apologize to a stranger for my own wife's betrayal. Work was a joke. I'd sit at my desk, staring at spreadsheets that might as well have been written in ancient Sanskrit for all the sense they made to me. My coworkers probably thought I'd developed some kind of rare neurological disorder that made me stare into space while making the occasional grunting sound. Karen from accounting asked me twice if I was feeling okay, and honestly, I was surprised she didn't just call an ambulance and have me shipped off to the nearest psychiatric facility. But here's the thing about rock bottom. Just when you think you've hit it, someone hands you a shovel and tells you to keep digging. That someone, in this case, was Clara, Marissa's best friend since college and current holder of the title most likely to enjoy other people's misery. It was Wednesday afternoon, and I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of a Taco Bell, stress-eating a Crunchwrap Supreme and contemplating whether this was what midlife crisis felt like, when my phone buzzed with a DM notification. Social media had become this weird minefield since the club incident. Every notification made me wonder if someone had posted a video of my public humiliation that was now going viral on TikTok. But this wasn't some random stranger or spam account. This was Clara, reaching out to me directly for the first time since, well, ever actually. In 3 years of marriage, Clara had maybe exchanged 17 words with me total, and most of those were variants of "excuse me" when she needed to get past me to raid our liquor cabinet. The message was short, just one line. "We need to talk. Check your DMs." My stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. Clara wanting to talk to me was like getting a personal invitation from Satan himself. Nothing good was going to come from this conversation. But curiosity killed the cat, and apparently, I was about to find out if satisfaction really could bring it back. I opened the message thread, and what I found there made my Crunchwrap Supreme taste like cardboard mixed with betrayal and a side of existential dread. "She only keeps you around because you're easy to control." Just like that. No preamble, no context, just a verbal sledgehammer to the chest delivered with the casual efficiency of someone ordering coffee. But Clara wasn't done being the bearer of soul-crushing news. Oh no, she was just getting warmed up. Below that opening line were screenshots. Lots of them. Group chat conversations, text message threads, social media exchanges, a whole digital archive of my wife's true feelings about our marriage, presented in living color with timestamps and everything. The first screenshot was from a group chat called Girls Night Nail Polish Sparkles, which apparently included Clara, 2 of Marissa's work friends, and her sister Beth. The conversation was dated just 2 days after our wedding anniversary last year. You know, that romantic evening where I'd surprised her with dinner at that expensive French place she'd been wanting to try. Marissa had to pretend to be impressed by dinner tonight face with rolling eyes. "He tries so hard it's actually pathetic." Beth "At least he's trying? That's more than most guys." Marissa "Please. He's like a golden retriever that thinks bringing you a dead bird is romantic. Sweet in theory, nauseating in practice." Clara "LOL dead bird skull, why don't you just train him better?" Marissa "Oh honey, I am. You should see how he jumps when I snap my fingers. It's like having a pet that pays half the rent." I had to read that exchange 3 times before it fully sank in. My wife had been comparing me to a dead bird delivering golden retriever while I'd been sitting across from her at Le Bernardin, thinking about how lucky I was to be married to such an amazing woman. The cognitive dissonance was so strong I briefly wondered if I'd slipped into an alternate dimension where everything was exactly the same except my wife was a sociopath. But wait, there's more. Clara had thoughtfully included screenshots going back months, a comprehensive documentary of my marriage's decline as seen through Marissa's group chats. It was like watching a nature documentary about the slow death of someone's self-respect, narrated by the very predator doing the killing. From 3 months ago, in a conversation about some reality TV show they'd been watching. Friend #1**. "I can't believe she stayed with him after he cheated." Marissa "Some women have no self-respect. Like, know your worth, you know." Clara says the woman married to a 2-tense practice husband faced with tears of joy. Marissa "HEY. Practice husbands serve a purpose. He's like training wheels for the real thing." Friend #2**. Practice husband? I'm dying skull. Marissa **. Think about it. He worships the ground I walk on, never questions anything I do, and he's so grateful for any attention I give him. It's perfect practice for handling a real relationship with someone who actually matters. Practice husband. There it was again, that phrase that had been haunting me since the club. Except now I knew it wasn't just something she'd said in anger. It was how she genuinely viewed our entire relationship. I was like a training dummy she'd been using to perfect her relationship skills before moving on to someone who actually deserved her time. The screenshots kept coming, each one a fresh knife twist in an already gaping wound. There were conversations about rating guys at bars, with Marissa awarding points based on looks, success, and alpha energy. There were discussions about keeping me in line and managing my expectations. There were even betting pools about how long it would take to break me completely. One conversation from just 2 weeks ago made me actually laugh out loud, but not in a good way. More like the kind of laugh people make right before they have complete nervous breakdowns. Marissa **. He bought me flowers yesterday. Just because. No special occasion or anything. Clara **. "Ah, that's sweet. Marissa asterisk asterisk. Is it though? Or is it desperate? Like, what kind of man randomly buys flowers because he's worried his wife might not love him anymore? Friend hashtag 1 asterisk asterisk. Maybe he just wanted to do something nice? Marissa asterisk asterisk. Please. He's like a dog that pees on the carpet and then brings you your slippers to avoid getting yelled at. Everything he does comes from fear, not love. Beth asterisk asterisk. That's actually kind of sad. Marissa asterisk asterisk. What's sad is that he's so clueless about what women actually want. Like, buy me flowers because you conquered something that day, not because you're scared I'm going to leave you. Clara asterisk asterisk. Have you tried dating other guys? You know, to remind yourself what you're missing. Marissa asterisk asterisk. I've thought about it. Maybe it's time for some field research smirking face. Field research. That's what Saturday night had been, field research. My wife conducting a controlled experiment in public humiliation to see exactly how much psychological abuse I could take before my spine completely dissolved. But the real gut punch came in the most recent screenshot from Sunday morning after the club incident. Clara had captured a conversation that happened while I was probably still lying in bed, replaying the night's horrors and wondering where the hell my marriage had gone wrong. Clara asterisk asterisk. Holy shit, girl. You absolutely destroyed him last night, face with tears of joy. Marissa asterisk asterisk. Did you see his face when I made him apologize to Derek? I thought he was going to cry right there at the table. Clara asterisk asterisk. I was waiting for the waterworks. How did it feel? Marissa asterisk asterisk. Honestly? Fucking amazing. I've been walking on eggshells around his fragile little ego for 3 years. It felt incredible to finally put him in his place. Beth asterisk asterisk. Isn't that kind of mean though? Marissa asterisk asterisk. Mean? Beth, sweetie, that's called establishing dominance. He'll never question me again after last night. Clara asterisk asterisk. Think it worked? Marissa asterisk asterisk. Oh honey, he's completely broken now. Mission accomplished, white heavy check mark. I sat there in my car, surrounded by the scent of fake Mexican food and existential crisis, staring at these screenshots like they were hieroglyphics from a civilization I'd never encountered before. This woman, this person I'd shared a bed with for 3 years, who I'd comforted during her grandmother's funeral, who I'd held while she cried about work stress, had been documenting my psychological destruction like a scientist studying lab rats. Every kind gesture I'd made, every attempt to be a good husband, every moment of vulnerability I'd shared with her had been fodder for her group chat entertainment. I was like a reality show that only she and her friends were watching, except instead of voting me off the island, they were placing bets on how long it would take me to completely lose my mind. The worst part wasn't even the cruelty, it was the calculation. This wasn't the result of a bad marriage that had slowly deteriorated over time. This was a deliberate, systematic campaign to break down my self-worth, while she practiced being in a real relationship with someone who actually mattered. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Clara. There's more. A lot more. But I thought you should see these first. Call me when you're ready to know the whole truth. I sat there for what felt like hours, watching office workers come and go from the Taco Bell, living their normal lives where their spouses probably didn't rate them like Olympic diving judges or refer to them as practice equipment. The screenshots had been like looking through a window into my wife's soul, except instead of finding love, or at least basic human decency, I'd found a void filled with contempt and casual cruelty. But here's the thing that surprised me most of all. I wasn't crying. I wasn't having a breakdown or calling in sick to work or driving straight to the nearest bar to drown my sorrows in whiskey and regret. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, maybe years, clarity. For the first time since our wedding day, I could see my marriage clearly, without the rose-colored glasses or the desperate hope that things would get better if I just tried harder. Marissa didn't love me. She'd never loved me. I wasn't her husband. I was her pet project, her practice dummy, her warm-up act before the real show began. She thought she'd broken me completely at the club, thought she'd established dominance and crushed my spirit so thoroughly that I'd never question her again. She had no idea that she'd actually done me the biggest favor of my life. She'd shown me exactly who she really was, and more importantly, she'd shown me exactly what I needed to do about it. I picked up my phone and typed a response to Clara. When and where? I want to know everything. Because if Marissa wanted to play games, I was about to show her what happened when you underestimate someone you think is already beaten. She thought I was just a practice husband, a broken man who'd never fight back. Time to prove her wrong. You know what they say about curiosity killing the cat? Well, apparently I was about to find out if satisfaction could perform a full resurrection, because after Clara's little digital care package, I developed an insatiable appetite for self-destruction. It's funny how discovering your wife thinks you're human garbage can suddenly turn you into Sherlock fucking Holmes, complete with a magnifying glass and an unhealthy obsession with finding clues. The screenshots Clara had sent were just the appetizer, and I was starving for the main course. If Marissa had been running a 3-year psychological experiment with me as the lab rat, then by God, I was going to read every single page of her research notes. Call it morbid curiosity, call it masochistic tendencies, call it whatever you want. I needed to know exactly how deep this rabbit hole went. So I did what any rational person would do after discovering their marriage was basically a performance art piece about emotional abuse. I became a digital detective with absolutely nothing left to lose. First stop, social media. Marissa's Instagram account was like a shrine to narcissism, carefully curated to present the image of a successful, independent woman living her best life. Her bio read, "Sparkles living my truth, sparkles woman dancing blessed and grateful folded hands," which, in hindsight, was about as authentic as a $3 bill printed on toilet paper. Scrolling through her posts was like watching a masterclass in selective editing. There were hundreds of photos of her looking fabulous at various restaurants, bars, and events, all artfully arranged to showcase her outfits, her food, her drinks, her perfectly manicured life. But here's what was interesting. And by interesting, I mean soul-crushingly obvious once you knew what to look for. I was practically invisible in her digital world. Out of her last 50 posts, I appeared in exactly three. And in those 3 photos, I looked like what I can only describe as background human. The kind of person you'd crop out if Instagram had better editing tools. In one, I was literally half out of frame, like she'd been trying to get a selfie and I'd accidentally photobombed my own wife's social media presence. But the real kicker was the captions. Every photo came with these inspirational quotes about knowing your worth and never settling for less than you deserve. She'd post pictures of her expensive dinners with captions like, "Treat yourself like the queen you are crowned," while I was sitting right across from her, paying for said dinner with money from our joint account. One post from our anniversary dinner, you know, the Deadbird incident from her group chat, featured a photo of her smiling at the camera with the caption, "Sometimes you have to remind yourself what you're worth, sparkles #self-love #word hit #blessed." The irony was so thick you could have bottled it and sold it as premium stupidity. The comments section was its own special kind of hell. Her friends and co-workers showering her with fire emojis and "Yes, Queen" responses, completely oblivious to the fact that they were essentially cheering for my systematic emotional destruction. Or maybe they weren't oblivious at all. Maybe they were all in on the joke, and I was the only one who didn't realize I was the punchline. But Instagram was just the surface level. The real treasure trove was buried deeper in her digital footprint, and thanks to our shared laptop and Marissa's complete confidence that I'd never grow a spine, I had access to everything. Her laptop was like an archaeological dig through 3 years of marital deception. Browser history, saved passwords, cached files. It was all there, waiting for someone with enough determination and questionable mental health to piece it together. And brother, I had both in spades. The group chats Clara had shown me were just the tip of the iceberg. There were dozens of conversation threads across multiple platforms: WhatsApp, Snapchat, Discord, even some dating app messaging system I'd never heard of. My wife had been more active in digital communication than a Fortune 500 company's social media manager, and apparently, I was the star of her content strategy. One Discord server called The Real Housewives of Nowhere, because my wife and her friends apparently thought they lived in some kind of reality show, contained months of conversations about me, other husbands, boyfriends, and random guys they'd rate like they were judging a dog show. There was an entire channel dedicated to what they called husband training, complete with tips, tricks, and success stories from their various psychological manipulation campaigns. Marissa **, update on Project Practice husband, got him to apologize to a random guy for existing last night, face with tears of joy. User, QueenBee23, Asterisk asterisk. No fucking way. Details now. Marissa asterisk asterisk. Club. Hot guy? Made him watch me grind on said hot guy. When he got upset, made him apologize to the guy for ruining my fun. User alpha bitch asterisk asterisk. I'm actually impressed. That's next level domination. Clara asterisk asterisk. I was there. His face was priceless. I thought he was going to have a breakdown right at the table. Marissa asterisk asterisk. The best part? He actually did it. Just rolled over and showed his belly like the good little beta he is. User savage goddess asterisk asterisk. Goals AF. My husband would never have the balls to even get upset. Marissa asterisk asterisk. That's because you haven't properly broken him yet. It's all about the long game, ladies. Reading this was like discovering your wife had been keeping a diary, except instead of writing about her hopes and dreams, she'd been documenting her successful campaign to destroy your sense of self-worth. The clinical detachment with which she discussed our marriage was honestly impressive in its complete lack of humanity. But it got worse. Oh, so much worse. There were spreadsheets. Actual fucking spreadsheets. My wife had been keeping detailed records of her interactions with male subjects, her words, not mine, complete with names, ratings, locations, and detailed notes about their potential. It was like she'd been conducting a market research study for her next relationship while still married to me. Derek from the club? 5-star rating across the board. Confident, physically attractive, clearly successful based on clothing/watch. Potential relationship material. Responds well to aggressive flirting. Husband's reaction, complete submission. Excellent training opportunity. There were dozens of entries going back over a year. Guys from her gym, co-workers, random men she'd met at coffee shops. All rated, categorized, and filed away like potential business contacts. She'd been shopping for my replacement while I was home making dinner and wondering why she seemed so distant lately. One entry from 6 months ago made me actually laugh out loud. That kind of hysterical laughter that probably indicates a complete mental breakdown. Subject. Marcus from marketing. 8 out of 10 physically, 6 out of 10 personality. Asked for coffee. Declined due to current living situation but noted for future reference. Husband getting suspicious of late nights. Need to manage expectations. Current living situation. She'd been referring to our marriage as her current living situation, like I was a temporary roommate she was planning to evict once she found better accommodations. The browser history was another adventure in psychological horror. Dating app profiles she'd created just to see what was out there, but never activated, according to the timestamps. Research into divorce lawyers and asset protection. Google searches for things like how to leave husband without losing money and emotional abuse tactics, and my personal favorite, how to know if you're too good for your spouse. But the real smoking gun was buried in her email drafts folder. Dozens of unsent messages to various men, ranging from flirty small talk to explicit invitations for drinks, dinner, and other activities that definitely weren't covered by our marriage vows. Most were never sent, but the fact that she'd written them at all painted a pretty clear picture of where her head had been for the past year. One draft to Derek, dated the day after the club incident, read, "Had such an amazing time dancing with you last night. My situation at home is complicated, but I'd love to grab coffee and talk about it. When are you free? Face blowing kiss." Another draft, this one to a guy named Ryan from her yoga class, was even more direct. "I know this is forward, but I can't stop thinking about you. I'm working on some major life changes right now, and I'd love to explore where this connection could go. Dinner tomorrow." She'd been laying the groundwork for her exit strategy while still sleeping in our bed, still kissing me goodbye every morning, still playing the role of loving wife when it suited her purposes. The level of premeditation was honestly breathtaking in its scope and cruelty. But here's what really got me. It wasn't just about finding someone better. According to her messages and posts, the cruelty was the point. She genuinely enjoyed the psychological manipulation, the power play, the systematic destruction of someone who loved her. There were entire conversations about the rush she got from putting me in my place and how good it felt to finally be in control. In one particularly enlightening exchange with a user called Dominant Diva, Marissa had written, "I used to think I was being mean, but honestly, he needs this. Men like him are supposed to be submissive. I'm just helping him find his natural place in the hierarchy. If anything, I'm doing him a favor by showing him what he really is. What I really was, according to my wife's extensive research, was a natural beta male who responds well to psychological conditioning and ideal practice material for learning relationship dynamics. She'd literally been using me as a training dummy while preparing for relationships with men she considered worthy of her time and attention. The more I dug, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't a marriage that had slowly deteriorated over time. This was never a marriage at all. It was a 3-year internship in emotional manipulation, with me as the unwitting intern and Marissa as the supervisor who'd been planning to fire me from day one. Every loving gesture I'd made, every attempt to be a good husband, every moment of vulnerability I'd shared had been filed away as evidence of my weakness and cataloged for future reference. She'd been building a case against me, documenting my inadequacy, preparing for the day when she'd finally found someone worth her time. But here's the thing about evidence. It cuts both ways. All those screenshots, all those drafts, all those detailed records of her psychological experiments, they weren't just proof of what she'd done to me. They were proof of who she really was, and more importantly, they were ammunition. Marissa thought she was a master manipulator playing chess while I was playing checkers. She thought she'd broken me so completely that I'd never fight back, never question her, never discover the extent of her betrayal. She was about to learn that sometimes the practice dummy starts hitting back, and I'd been taking very detailed notes. Timing, they say, is everything. And apparently, the universe has one hell of a sense of humor, because Marissa chose Thursday evening, exactly 1 week after her Oscar-worthy performance at Ember, to come home humming like she'd just won the lottery instead of systematically destroying her marriage for the past 3 years. I was sitting at our kitchen table, Clara's screenshots spread out in front of me like evidence at a crime scene, when I heard her key in the lock. The sound used to make me happy, this little domestic ritual that meant my wife was home and we could spend the evening together like actual human beings who gave a shit about each other. Now it sounded like a death knell, except instead of mourning someone's passing, I was celebrating the death of my own delusions. "Honey, I'm home," she called out in that sing-song voice that probably worked great when she was practicing her manipulation techniques in front of the mirror. The casual cheerfulness of it made my skin crawl, like watching a serial killer whistle while disposing of evidence. She waltzed into the kitchen wearing one of her work outfits, a power suit that cost more than most people's car payments and heels that could probably be classified as weapons in 17 states. Her makeup was perfect, her hair was styled like she'd just stepped out of a salon, and she had that satisfied glow that comes from spending 8 hours at a job where people actually appreciate your existence. "How was your day, babe?" she asked, setting her purse down on the counter and heading straight for the wine fridge like this was just another normal evening in paradise. No guilt, no awkwardness, no acknowledgement that she'd spent the past week acting like our marriage was some kind of elaborate joke that only she was in on. "Enlightening," I said, watching her pour herself a glass of Pinot Grigio like she was performing a sacred ritual. "Really fucking enlightening, actually." Something in my tone must have registered because she paused mid-pour, her perfectly manicured hand frozen halfway to her mouth. For just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Not guilt exactly, but maybe recognition that the soundtrack to our evening wasn't going to be smooth jazz and casual conversation. "That's good," she said, turning around to face me with that carefully constructed smile that had fooled me for 3 years. "You sound different. Did something happen at work?" "You could say that," I replied, picking up the first screenshot from Clara's collection, the one where she'd called me a practice husband who was like training wheels for the real thing. But actually, my education happened right here at home. Turns out my wife is quite the teacher when she puts her mind to it. I held up the screenshot, and I swear to God, watching her face change was like watching a time-lapse video of someone aging 50 years in 5 seconds. The color drained from her cheeks, her eyes went wide, and that perfect smile cracked like cheap plaster in an earthquake. What is that?" she stammered, but we both knew exactly what it was. The screenshot was clearly visible from where she stood, and even if she couldn't read the details, the group chat format was unmistakable. "This," I said, waving the paper like I was presenting evidence to a jury. "This is your greatest hits collection, sweetheart. Your behind-the-scenes commentary on our marriage. Your real thoughts about your practice husband. She set down her wine glass, so hard I was surprised it didn't shatter, which honestly would have been perfect symbolism for what was happening to our relationship in that moment. Where did you get that? Did you go through my phone? The indignation in her voice was absolutely precious. Here she was, caught red-handed talking shit about me to her friends for 3 years, and she was upset about privacy violations. It was like a burglar getting mad at you for having security cameras. Does it matter where I got it? I asked, pulling out another screenshot, this one from the Discord server where she'd bragged about making me apologize to Derek. The question is it true? Did you really call me a 2 out of 10 practice husband? Did you really bet with your friends about how long it would take to break me completely? She opened and closed her mouth like a fish that had suddenly realized it was out of water, her brain obviously working overtime to figure out how to spin this situation in her favor. I could practically see the gears turning, calculating whether to deny, deflect, or double down. You're misinterpreting, she started, but I cut her off with a laugh that probably sounded more unhinged than I intended. Misinterpreting? I stood up, holding another screenshot. How exactly do you misinterpret he's like a golden retriever that thinks bringing you a dead bird is romantic? Or everything he does comes from fear, not love? Please, I'm dying to hear your explanation for this one. Her face flushed red, but instead of shame or embarrassment, what I saw was anger. Pure, undiluted rage of being caught, like a kid who'd been stealing cookies and was pissed off at the existence of crumbs. You had no right to invade my privacy, she hissed, her voice taking on that dangerous edge I'd learned to fear. Those were private conversations between friends. Private conversations? I repeated, my voice rising. You mean the private conversations where you documented every cruel thing you've done to me for the past 3 years? The private conversations where you rated other men while calling your husband worthless? Those private conversations. She tried a different tactic, her expression shifting to something that might have been remorse if you squinted hard enough and had recently suffered a traumatic brain injury. Look, I know some of those messages sound bad, but you don't understand the context. We were just venting, just girl talk. It didn't mean anything. Girl talk. Right. Because systematically planning someone's psychological destruction was just another way women bonded with their friends, like sharing recipes or discussing the latest Netflix series. Didn't mean anything? I pulled out the screenshot of her rating Derek 5 stars and noting his potential as relationship material. So when you wrote that Derek was potential relationship material and rated him 5 stars across the board, that was just meaningless girl talk. That's when her mask finally slipped completely. The fake remorse disappeared, replaced by the cold calculation I'd glimpsed at the club but had been too naive to fully recognize. This was the real Marissa, the one who'd been hiding behind 3 years of performance art. Fine, she said, her voice flat and emotionless. You want the truth? Yes, I wrote those things. Yes, I said those things. And yes, every single word was true. The admission hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd known it was coming. Hearing her say it out loud, watching her drop the pretense completely, was like watching someone die right in front of you. Except the person dying was the version of my wife I'd thought I knew. Derek is a real man, she continued, her voice gaining strength as she leaned into the cruelty. He's confident, successful, attractive, everything you're not. And yes, I would choose him over you in a heartbeat if the circumstances were different. What circumstances? I asked, though I was pretty sure I already knew the answer. She smiled then, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. Not because it was angry or cruel, but because it was genuinely happy. She was enjoying this. The circumstances where I don't lose half my stuff in a divorce, she said simply. The circumstances where I can trade up without having to start over financially. You think I'd still be here if you weren't paying for my lifestyle? And there it was. The truth, delivered with surgical precision and absolutely no anesthesia. I wasn't her husband. I was her financial safety net, her practice dummy, her interim solution while she shopped for an upgrade. But here's the thing she didn't know. The thing she couldn't have predicted in all her careful planning and psychological manipulation. I wasn't the same broken man she'd been training for the past 3 years. I was learning to bite back. Well, I said, gathering up the screenshots with deliberate calm. Thanks for clearing that up. Really saves us both a lot of time and energy pretending this marriage means something. For the first time since I'd known her, Marissa looked uncertain. like she'd expected me to crumble, to beg, to apologize for discovering her betrayal. Instead, I was standing there organizing evidence like I was preparing for trial. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice smaller now, less certain. "Research," I said simply. "Turns out I'm a much better student than either of us realized." Hashtag Chapter 7, The Best Friend's Confession. The universe apparently wasn't done fucking with me yet, because just as I was starting to process the fact that my wife had essentially admitted to using me as a glorified ATM with benefits, my phone buzzed with another message from Clara. "You know, Clara, Marissa's ride-or-die best friend since college. The woman who'd been cheering from the sidelines while my marriage got fed through a wood chipper. The same person who was now playing deep-throat whistleblower in my own personal Watergate scandal." The timing was so perfect it almost felt scripted, like some cosmic screenwriter had decided my life needed more dramatic irony and less basic human happiness. Marissa was standing there in our kitchen, her mask finally off and her true sociopathic colors flying high, when my phone lit up with a notification that would make the evening's festivities even more entertaining. "Hold that thought," I said to my wife, who was currently looking like someone who'd just realized they'd been playing poker with their cards face up for 3 years. "Looks like your bestie has more educational materials for me." I opened the message from Clara, and what I found there made me actually start laughing, not the bitter, broken laughter of a man whose world was collapsing, but the genuine amusement of someone watching karma deliver a masterclass in poetic justice. "She's panicking, calling everyone trying to figure out how much you know. Thought you should see what she's really been saying about you behind closed doors." Attached were new screenshots, and these ones made the previous batch look like love letters in comparison. These were from conversations that had happened literally minutes ago, while I'd been confronting Marissa in our kitchen. Apparently, while she'd been standing there trying to figure out how to spin her way out of this mess, she'd also been frantically texting her support network like a mob boss calling in favors. The first screenshot was from a group chat with Clara, Beth, and 2 other friends, timestamped just 20 minutes earlier. Marissa ***, emergency. He found the messages somehow. Need damage control now. Beth ***, what messages? How much does he know? Marissa ***, screenshots of group chats. The practice husband stuff. Maybe more. Fuck. Clara ***, how did he get them? Marissa ***, doesn't matter. Need to figure out how to spin this. He's acting different. Not broken like he should be. Friend #1***. Maybe just deny everything? Say it was fake or taken out of context. Marissa ***, too late. Already tried that. He has too much evidence. Think he might have been going through my stuff. Clara ***, what stuff? How much could he have found? Marissa ***, I don't know. That's the problem. He's not reacting like normal. Usually when I get caught doing something, he just apologizes and tries harder. This time he's calm. It's freaking me out. Reading this was like watching a nature documentary about a predator suddenly realizing it had been stalking another predator the whole time. Marissa was genuinely confused by my lack of submission, like a dog trainer whose perfectly obedient pet had suddenly started barking back. But Clara's information dump was just getting started. The next screenshot showed a private conversation between just Clara and Marissa, and this one made my wife's previous cruelty look like amateur hour. Marissa ***, he's not supposed to fight back. That's not how this works. Clara ***, maybe you pushed too far with the club thing? Marissa ***, no. That was perfect. Showed him exactly where he stands. The problem is he's not staying there. Clara ***, what do you mean? Marissa ***, he's supposed to be grateful I even acknowledged the situation. Instead, he's acting like he has options or something. Like he's not completely dependent on me for validation. Clara ***, maybe because he's not? Maybe you've been wrong about how broken he actually is. Marissa ***, impossible. I've been conditioning him for 3 years. Every time he showed backbone, I crushed it. Every time he got confident, I reminded him how lucky he is that I tolerate him. He should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention I give him. The clinical way she discussed conditioning me was honestly impressive in its complete lack of humanity. She'd been running a psychological experiment for 3 years, and her test subject had just started producing unexpected results. The confusion in her messages was palpable. This wasn't part of her carefully constructed plan. But the real kicker came in the next exchange, where Clara had apparently decided to twist the knife a little deeper. Clara ***, want some free advice? Maybe you should have actually tried being a decent wife instead of treating him like a psychology experiment. Marissa ***, excuse me? Whose side are you on here? Clara ***, I'm on the side of not being a complete sociopath to someone who's been nothing but good to you for 3 years. Marissa ***, good to me? Clara, he's boring. He's weak. He's everything I settled for because I thought I couldn't do better. The only reason I stayed was because leaving would be financially inconvenient. Clara ***, and now? Marissa ***, now I'm realizing that maybe financial inconvenience is better than being married to someone who's finally growing a spine. This version of him is unsettling. Unsettling. My wife found the idea of me not being a completely broken doormat unsettling. It was like discovering that your house pet had suddenly learned to speak and was planning to file taxes. Unexpected and vaguely threatening to the established order. I looked up from my phone to find Marissa watching me with the kind of nervous energy usually reserved for people waiting for medical test results. What's so funny? She asked, though her voice suggested she really didn't want to know the answer. Your best friend? I said, holding up my phone like it was Exhibit A in the trial of the century. Turns out Clara's got a lot more to say about our marriage. Want to hear her thoughts on your conditioning program? The blood drained from Marissa's face so fast I was briefly concerned she might actually faint right there on our kitchen floor. What did she tell you? She whispered. And for the first time in our entire relationship, I heard something I'd never heard before in her voice, fear. Oh, just some fascinating insights into your 3-year psychology experiment, I said casually, scrolling through Clara's messages like I was reading the morning news. Apparently, you've been conditioning me to be grateful for scraps of attention. Who knew? But Clara wasn't done with her information dump. Another message had just come through, this one with an attachment that made my blood run cold. She's been planning this for months. Divorce papers are already drawn up. She was just waiting for the right moment to serve you. Thought you should know before she tries to play victim. The attachment was a PDF of actual divorce papers, dated 3 months ago, with Marissa's name already signed at the bottom. She'd been planning to leave me for months, just waiting for the perfect moment to maximize her advantage. All that talk about financial inconvenience? She'd already figured out how to minimize the damage to her bank account. I held up my phone again, showing her the document. Interesting timing on these divorce papers, don't you think? Filed 3 months ago, but never served. Were you waiting for a special occasion, or just trying to figure out how to screw me over more efficiently? If Marissa had looked scared before, now she looked absolutely terrified. This wasn't part of her plan. She was supposed to be in control, supposed to be the one holding all the cards while I scrambled to figure out what was happening. Instead, I was sitting here with her entire strategy laid out in front of me like a poorly written instruction manual. How did you? She started, then stopped, probably realizing that asking how I'd obtained evidence of her betrayal was like asking how the police had found the murder weapon in your closet. Clara's been very helpful, I said, standing up from the table with all the evidence spread out like a prosecutor's wet dream. Turns out your best friend has some serious concerns about your approach to marriage. Something about not being a complete sociopath to someone who's been good to you for 3 years. Marissa's hands were actually shaking now, and not from anger this time. For the first time in our entire relationship, she was the one who didn't know what was coming next. The psychological manipulation she'd been so proud of had backfired spectacularly, and now her own support network was feeding me ammunition for whatever came next. Look, she said, her voice taking on a desperate edge I'd never heard before. I know this looks bad, but you have to understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I interrupted, gathering up all the screenshots and documents with deliberate calm. I understand that you've been playing a game for 3 years, and you just discovered that your opponent has been keeping score the whole time. For once in our marriage, Marissa had absolutely nothing to say. And honestly, the silence was fucking beautiful. You'd think that discovering your wife had been running a 3-year psychological warfare campaign against you while secretly preparing divorce papers would be enough drama for one evening. You'd think that finding out she'd been rating other men like they were menu items at her personal relationship buffet would constitute a satisfying climax to this particular domestic horror story. But apparently, the universe wasn't done serving up fresh helpings of holy shit. Your life is more fucked up than you thought. Because Friday night, exactly 24 hours after our kitchen confrontation that had left Marissa speechless for the first time in recorded history, she decided to take a shower, and her phone decided to have a fucking seizure. I was sitting on our couch, nursing a beer and scrolling through the latest evidence Clara had sent me. Apparently, my wife's panic texting had reached epic proportions when Marissa's iPhone started buzzing like an angry wasp trapped in a mason jar. Buzz, 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 buzz. The kind of rapid-fire notification symphony that usually means someone's either having a mental breakdown via text message or there's a group chat emergency involving someone's dramatic relationship crisis. Your phone's having a stroke. I called toward the bathroom, where the sound of running water suggested my wife was busy scrubbing off the day's accumulation of lies and psychological manipulation. "Just ignore it," she yelled back, her voice echoing off the bathroom tiles with the kind of casual indifference that immediately made my bullshit detector start screaming like a smoke alarm in a house fire. These were the circumstances where I'd just discovered my wife had been documenting my psychological destruction for her friends' entertainment while shopping for my replacement, like she was browsing Amazon for a better coffee maker. So when her phone kept buzzing with the persistence of a debt collector who knows you're hiding behind the couch, my curiosity got the better of my usual respect for privacy. The screen was lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve, and I could see notification previews without even unlocking the damn thing. And what I saw there made my blood turn to actual ice water. Derek asterisk asterisk. Can't stop thinking about last night fire. Derek asterisk asterisk. When can we do that again? Derek asterisk asterisk. Your husband has no idea, does he? LOL. Well, that was fucking illuminating. Apparently, while I'd been sitting here thinking our marriage was just emotionally dead, it had actually been physically murdered and buried in a shallow grave marked adultery. Derek, Mr. Perfect from the club, the 5-star rated potential relationship material, had been getting a lot more than just grinding sessions on the dance floor. My hands were shaking as I picked up the phone, and I'm not proud to admit that I knew Marissa's passcode because she'd never bothered to hide it from me. Why would she? I was just the practice husband, too broken and pathetic to ever question her or dig deeper into her private life. In her mind, I was probably sitting here grateful that she'd even come home instead of running off with Derek immediately. The text thread with Derek was like reading a fucking novel about my own cuckolding, complete with detailed reviews and scheduling for future episodes. Messages going back 2 weeks, starting the day after the club incident. Marissa asterisk asterisk. Last night was incredible. I haven't felt that alive in years. Derek asterisk asterisk. Your husband seemed. Understanding smirking face. Marissa asterisk asterisk. He's completely whipped. I could fuck you on our kitchen table, and he'd probably apologize for the mess. Derek asterisk asterisk. That confident, huh? Might be fun to test that theory. Marissa asterisk asterisk. Don't tempt me. Though honestly, part of me thinks he'd be relieved if I just left him for someone better. Derek asterisk asterisk. Are you planning to? Marissa asterisk asterisk. Eventually. Just need to time it right. Financial stuff, you know. The messages got progressively more explicit and detailed about their encounters, which apparently had been happening in our bed while I was at work, in hotel rooms downtown during her work dinners, and once, this one really got me, in Derek's car in the parking lot of the restaurant where we'd had our anniversary dinner last month. Our fucking anniversary dinner. While I'd been sitting across from her, talking about how grateful I was for another year together and how much I loved her, she'd been texting the guy she'd fucked in the parking lot 2 hours earlier. But the real knife twist came in a message from just 3 hours ago. Derek asterisk asterisk. So what's the timeline? When are you finally going to dump the practice husband? Marissa asterisk asterisk. Soon. He's starting to get suspicious, asking questions. Might need to accelerate the plan. Derek asterisk asterisk. What kind of questions? Marissa asterisk asterisk. Found some group chat screenshots somehow. Nothing major, but he's not being as submissive as usual. It's actually kind of creepy how different he's acting. Derek asterisk asterisk. Maybe he's finally growing some balls. Marissa asterisk asterisk. God, I hope not. The last thing I need is him developing self-respect right when I'm trying to exit gracefully. Derek ***. Want me to come over? We could fuck in your bed again. Might help remind you why you're leaving. Marissa ***. Tempting, but he's home tonight. Rain check until I can get rid of him for a few hours. I sat there staring at that conversation for what felt like 17 years, my brain trying to process the fact that my wife had been using our marital bed as her personal adultery playground while I was out earning money to pay for the apartment where she was cheating on me. The level of contempt required to pull that off was honestly impressive in its complete sociopathy. The shower was still running, which meant I had time to keep reading. And boy, did things get worse. There were photos, not the kind you'd want to find on your spouse's phone. Videos, detailed planning for future hookups, and perhaps most disturbing of all, a conversation about me from just yesterday. Derek ***. What if he doesn't take the divorce well? Some guys get crazy when their wives leave. Marissa ***. Please. Look at him. He's the type who'll apologize for making me unhappy and probably help me pack. I've got him so well trained he'd probably thank me for putting him out of his misery. Derek ***. You're pretty confident for someone married to a guy you've been psychologically torturing for 3 years. Marissa ***. Trust me. I know him better than he knows himself. He'll cry, maybe beg a little, but ultimately he'll roll over and accept whatever I decide to give him in the divorce. He doesn't have the spine for a real fight. That's when the shower turned off, and I heard Marissa moving around in the bathroom, probably getting ready to come out here and continue whatever psychological game she'd been planning for this evening. Maybe she was going to be extra nice to me, really sell the loving wife performance while she figured out how to manage the timeline of her exit strategy. I set her phone back down exactly where she'd left it, my hands surprisingly steady for someone whose entire world had just been revealed to be an elaborate lie constructed by a sociopathic adulteress with a spreadsheet fetish and a god complex. I set her phone back down exactly where she'd left it, my hands surprisingly steady for someone whose entire world had just been revealed to be an elaborate lie constructed by a sociopathic adulteress with a spreadsheet fetish and a god complex. When she walked out of the bathroom in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, looking like the picture of domestic innocence, I was ready for her. Have a good shower? I asked casually. She said, moving toward her phone to check those messages that had been buzzing earlier. Very relaxing. I watched her face as she scrolled through Derek's messages, watched her expression change from casual contentment to barely concealed panic as she realized what I'd potentially seen. Everything okay? I asked, my voice perfectly calm. You look a little stressed. She looked up at me with those wide, innocent eyes that had fooled me for 3 years. Just work stuff, she lied smoothly. Nothing important. Derek from work? I asked, and I swear to God, watching her face crumble was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Game over. You know that moment in horror movies when the victim suddenly grabs the killer's weapon and the whole dynamic shifts? When the hunter becomes the hunted and the predator realizes they've been stalking something with bigger teeth. That's exactly what happened in our living room at 9:47 p.m. on a Friday night that will forever be remembered as the evening Marissa discovered that her practice husband had graduated with honors. The look on her face when I said Derek's name was absolutely priceless, like watching someone's soul evacuate their body through their eyeballs. Her phone actually slipped from her hands, clattering onto our hardwood floor with the kind of dramatic timing that Hollywood screenwriters dream about. For a woman who'd spent 3 years perfecting the art of psychological manipulation, she sure as hell couldn't handle being on the receiving end. Derek from work? I repeated, tilting my head with the kind of innocent curiosity she'd been weaponizing against me for years. Seems like he's been pretty chatty tonight. Something about not being able to stop thinking about last night. As she opened and closed her mouth like a fish that had suddenly realized it was in a blender instead of a fishbowl. The confident, calculating woman who'd been playing chess with my emotions for 3 years had been reduced to a stammering mess by one simple question. It was like watching the Wizard of Oz get exposed, except instead of a harmless old man behind the curtain, we'd found a sociopathic adulteress with a god complex and terrible password security. I don't know what you're talking about, she managed to croak out, bending down to pick up her phone with hands that were shaking like she'd developed sudden-onset Parkinson's. Derek's just a friend from the gym. Friend from the gym. Right. Because I'm sure all gym friendships involve detailed discussions about fucking in parking lots and scheduling adultery sessions around your husband's work schedule. Interesting friend, I said, pulling out my own phone where I'd screenshotted the most damning parts of their conversation. Very supportive. Really seems to care about your timing issues. I held up the screenshot of Derek asking when she was going to dump the practice husband and watched what little color remained in her face disappear completely. She looked like a vampire who'd been caught in direct sunlight, except instead of bursting into flames, she was just standing there in our living room having what appeared to be a real-time nervous breakdown. How did you? She started, then stopped, probably realizing that asking about my investigative methods was like asking the police how they'd found the murder weapon after they'd already arrested you for murder. See, here's the thing about being married to someone for 3 years, I said, standing up from the couch with all the casual confidence of someone who'd finally learned the rules to a game everyone else had been playing. You start to notice patterns, like how your work dinners always seem to coincide with your good moods, or how you come home from the gym looking like you've had a really excellent workout. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear our upstairs neighbor's television through the ceiling. Marissa was staring at me like I'd suddenly grown a second head that spoke fluent Mandarin, completely unable to process the fact that her perfectly controlled psychological experiment had just turned into a fucking crime scene with her as the primary suspect. This isn't what it looks like, she finally said, which had to be the most predictable response in the history of marital confrontations. Next, she'd probably tell me it was just physical, or that Derek didn't mean anything, or some other greatest hits from the cheating spouse's playbook. Really? I said, scrolling through more screenshots. Because it looks like you've been fucking Derek in our bed while I'm at work, planning your exit strategy while pretending to be a loving wife, and discussing how pathetic I am with your side piece. But hey, I'm just the practice husband. What do I know about reading comprehension? That's when something beautiful happened. Something I'd been waiting 3 years to see without even realizing it. Marissa's carefully constructed mask didn't just slip. It shattered completely, revealing the ugly truth underneath like a demolished building exposing its rotten foundation. Fine, she screamed, her voice cracking with the kind of rage that comes from being cornered by someone you've underestimated. Yes, I've been fucking Derek. Yes, I've been planning to leave you. Yes, I think you're pathetic and boring and everything I settled for because I didn't think I could do better. Are you happy now? The admission hung in the air like smoke from an explosion, and I have to admit, hearing her finally tell the truth was oddly liberating. No more gaslighting, no more manipulation, no more pretending we were anything other than what we really were, a predator and prey who'd accidentally switched roles. Ecstatic, I said, pulling out a manila folder I'd prepared earlier that day. Really fucking ecstatic, actually, because now we can stop pretending and get down to business. I opened the folder and spread its contents across our coffee table like a dealer laying out cards. Screenshots of her group chats, printed emails from her drafts folder, bank statements showing suspicious charges at hotels during her work dinners, phone records showing calls to Derek at all hours, the divorce papers she'd had drawn up 3 months ago, everything. Her eyes went wide as she took in the scope of evidence I'd assembled, the comprehensive documentation of her 3-year campaign of psychological warfare and adultery. What is all this? This, I said, sitting back down with the satisfaction of someone who'd just played a royal flush, is the complete record of our marriage. Every lie, every manipulation, every cruel comment, every secret meeting with Derek. Everything you thought I was too stupid or broken to discover. She sank into the chair across from me like someone who'd just realized they'd been playing poker with their cards face up for 3 years. You can't use any of this. It's private. Private. I laughed, and it felt good to laugh at her for once instead of with her. Sweetheart, you forfeited your right to privacy the moment you decided to turn our marriage into your personal psychological experiment. Besides, most of this came from your best friend. Apparently, Clara's got some serious concerns about your approach to basic human decency. That's when the tears started, and let me tell you, watching Marissa cry was like watching a master manipulator realize their favorite weapon had just been turned against them. These weren't tears of genuine remorse. These were tears of someone who'd suddenly realized they were completely fucked. Please, she said, and the word came out like a confession extracted under torture. Please don't do this. I'll stop seeing Derek. I'll be better. I'll be the wife you want me to be. The wife I wanted her to be. That was rich. Like she could just flip a switch and become a decent human being after 3 years of systematic emotional abuse and adultery. Here's what's going to happen, I said, leaning forward with the kind of calm authority I'd never felt in our relationship before. You're going to pack your things and get out of my apartment. You have 1 hour. Your apartment? She said, her voice small and confused. But we both. My apartment, I repeated firmly. Check the lease. My name, my credit, my security deposit. You've been living in my space while fucking another man in my bed. That ends tonight. The realization hit her like a freight train loaded with consequences. She'd been so focused on her psychological manipulation games that she'd apparently forgotten the basic legal realities of our living situation. In her mind, she'd been the one in control, the one calling all the shots. In reality, she'd been a guest in my home, playing games with someone who'd been keeping much better records than she'd realized. 1 hour, I repeated, checking my watch with theatrical precision. After that, I changed the locks, and anything you leave behind becomes a very expensive lesson in the importance of reading rental agreements. And for the first time in our entire relationship, Marissa obeyed me without argument. Because finally, after 3 years of thinking she was playing chess while I was playing checkers, she discovered that I'd been playing chess too. I'd just been playing a much longer game. 3 weeks. That's how long it's been since Marissa packed her designer clothes into garbage bags and slunk out of my apartment like a vampire fleeing sunrise. 3 weeks since she discovered that her practice husband had been taking very detailed notes on her masterclass in psychological warfare. 3 weeks since I finally learned the difference between being alone and being free. The silence in my apartment isn't empty anymore. It's peaceful. No more walking on eggshells. No more wondering which version of my wife would come home each night. No more apologizing for existing in my own goddamn life. I can eat cereal for dinner without getting a lecture about nutrition. I can watch whatever I want on TV without negotiating like I'm trying to broker a Middle East peace treaty. I can just exist without constantly calculating how to avoid triggering another psychological experiment. But here's the beautiful part. Marissa hasn't gotten the memo that the game is over. My phone buzzes constantly with her increasingly desperate attempts to regain control. Text messages that start apologetic and gradually escalate to threats. Voicemails where she alternates between sobbing about how sorry she is and screaming about how I've ruined her life. She's created fake social media accounts to try to contact me, shown up at my building crying to the doorman about being locked out, and even tried to use our mutual friends as intermediaries. The funniest part? She still doesn't understand that I have zero interest in playing her games anymore. Every message goes unanswered. Every attempt at manipulation gets ignored. Every tear, every threat, every promise to change. They're all just noise from someone who's finally discovered what happens when you bet everything on your opponent staying broken forever. Derek, apparently, lost interest the moment she became available. Funny how that works. Turns out fucking someone else's wife was more appealing than actually dating a woman who'd spent 3 years documenting her husband's psychological destruction for entertainment. Who could have predicted that a guy who'd helped destroy someone's marriage might not be relationship material? But here's my favorite part of this whole situation. She has no idea what I'm going to do with all that evidence. Every screenshot, every recorded conversation, every documented lie. It's all sitting in a file on my computer, waiting. She knows I have it. Knows it could destroy her reputation, her career, her carefully constructed image as a successful, independent woman. So she lives in fear now. Fear that I'll send those group chats to her boss. Fear that I'll post her Derek conversations on social media. Fear that I'll show everyone exactly who she really is behind that perfect Instagram facade. And I love that she's afraid. Not because I'm planning some elaborate revenge scheme. Honestly, I don't need to destroy her reputation because she's doing that just fine on her own. But because for the first time in our entire relationship, she's the one lying awake at night wondering what's coming next. She thought she was playing with a broken man who'd never fight back. Instead, she was training someone to be stronger, smarter, and more ruthless than she'd ever imagined. She wanted a practice husband? Well, congratulations, she got exactly what she asked for. I practiced being married to a sociopath for 3 years, and now I'm ready for the real thing. The real thing, it turns out, is freedom.